Now, I know what you're thinking. OP, a haunted gym? Come on, this is supposed to be non-fiction. Believe me, I would have thought I was crazy reading this too. I've always been a skeptic, but this really changed me. I'm the person who loves science and can always find a logical explanation for something, even when it's a huge stretch. But no, I'm not joking. These experiences changed me and my team forever. You believe I'm not crazy yet? Well, that's good. I can finally tell you my story. I've been doing gymnastics for about 9 years at this point, and I'm competing level 8 this year. But this story begins about a year and a half ago, in November of 2017. Competition season was rapidly approaching, and plans were being made to move our gym across town before the month was out. So we were working harder than usual in our gym. Our team was burning out, and we really needed to remember why we loved the sport so much. My floor coaches, Gabby and Maya, sat us all down one day to have a team chat. Brooke, Abby, Sydney, Emma, Charlie, Elena and I sat in our usual semicircle at their feet. I can tell you're losing it. I am too. So I proposed a break. After Friday's practice, we'll have another sleepover. This may be our last chance in this gym. Everyone, of course, loved Gabby's proposal. All of our past sleepovers have been some of the funniest experiences at the gym, and they really had brought us all closer. This one was to be no exception. My teammates all agreed to bring drinks, games, and of course, food. "We're going to make this the best sleepover ever," exclaimed Emma. The day arrives, and we're all itching to get practice over with so we can party. We listen to Charlie's new song. It was ridiculous, but we loved her songs and her strange, twisted 11-year-old brain. It was an average practice filled with laughs in between exercise and after exercise. The time finally came for us to stay. First on the agenda, wiffle ball. We split into teams and played our hearts out. As I'm up to bat, I swing and hit. I throw my bat aside. I hear a scream. Brooke is on the ground, hands over her face, looking like she had just seen a ghost. She took her hands away and her right eye was bright red. "You idiot," she shouted, almost giggling. All I saw was the bat coming at my eye and then pain. I had hit her with the flying bat. Waffle bat was almost over after that, and with the collaborate softball talents of Gabby and the pure stubbornness of Sydney and myself, we had managed to squeeze in a victory. Next up was just some dancing in our annual ugly dance-off. We all spread out across the floor in front of the tall, vast mirrors we used to practice our routines. That was cut short, because soon after the music had started playing, Elena noticed something was wrong. Guys, she shouted, until one of us decided that maybe what she had to say was more important than doing the worm. We shut off the music and turned on the lights. "What do you want, Elena?" we all questioned. "Those haven't been there, have they?" "No one did that. How could we have noticed?" she asked her, voice slightly shaking. All of us confused, we stared at her like she was crazy. We thought maybe she was crazy until she slowly raised her hand, pointing to the top of the mirror. They were long, thin, white handprints, all across the top of the mirror. There were some very large, claw-like ones, upside down, twisted, and all over the place. Some of them were tiny, almost as if a baby had crawled across the mirror. They too were twisted, upside down, and in no special pattern. It was like I could feel the hands clawing up and down my back, and the chills sent me to the ground. We were all floored, staring in horror and awe. "Did one of you pull that? Come on, don't scare us." "This is total bull," I said. I knew in my heart it wasn't any of them, but my skepticism prevented me from believing what I was seeing. None of us did that. There was no way anyone could have done that without standing on something. Abby had always been like an older sister to me. She was strong and fearless, but now even her voice was high-pitched and quivering with fear. We all sat there, almost silently, for a few minutes, just processing the image before us. Being tweens and teens, each of us took our phones out and snapped a shot of these prints. In a vain attempt to lighten the mood, Emma said, "The big one looks like Sheldon made them." We were too creeped out to fully appreciate the humour, but a lighter mood came over us like a blanket. "The little one's definitely a little girl, like the girls in The Shining," Charlie remarked. I dubbed her Lucy, but that wasn't quite right. Sydney suggested Lucille, and something about that sent a chill up my neck. "Lucille," repeated Maya, and I could tell that she too had felt what I had. "I can't look at them anymore. Let's get rid of them," Brooke suggested. The kind of paranormal activity affected her the most. She'd always believed in ghosts, and grew up in an old house with many experiences. I'd chalked up to coincidence or some other phenomenon. Now, I wasn't so sure about that. Gabby and Maya grabbed the cleaning supplies and a couple of stepladders, and soon the mirrors looked as if no hands had ever touched them. Scarred, but determined to keep up with the fun of the sleepover, we decided to play hide-and-go-seek, but in the nearly pitch black of the gym at night, the only light coming in was the dim beams of occasional headlights on the road outside, streaming through the dusty garage windows. Rounds went by, and my spots were legendary. I've always been great at finding tight spaces and corners no sane person would look to check. The round, when it happened, was no exception. Let's pause the story real quick, and I'll give you a layout of the gym. When you walk in the front door, there's a lobby. The lobby enters into a seating area. The seating area is next to a small carpeted zone we call the preschool area. In front of both of those things is the spring floor, and towards the left side are the vaults. Further to the left is the trampoline and some of the mats and storage. The vaults, naturally, have runways that extend all the way to the back of the gym. On the far left, past the trampoline areas, are the parallel bars. Behind the floor on the opposite side of the runways are the bars, and on the far right of the bars are the beams. Littered throughout are piles of mats and other drills. Now, this may seem fairly arbitrary and frankly a bit confusing now, but I promise you it will all make sense. This is what made the round absolutely spine-chilling. Gabby, Maya, and Abby were grouped together to be the Seekers. They retreated to the lobby to count, as we scrambled in the darkness to find a good spot. I chose to hide in the darkest corner of the preschool area, under a small and colourful beam, and covered up by a thin mat. I made sure I had a peephole. Everyone else scattered and hid, and after all the noise of moving mats had died down, I swore I heard a faint noise. I heard it again, but this time it was almost in my ear. A voice says my name, sounding like a hissing snake. Although the Seekers were still counting, I felt that I couldn't be loud, even though the voice had sounded so close to me. I thought it was Emma calling out for me for the right edge of the floor just 15 feet away. I whispered back, "What?" at the lowest volume I could, so I thought she could hear me. I only whispered once, and there was no response. I never could call out again, because at that exact moment the Seekers emerged from the lobby into the awaiting darkness. I watched through my peephole as they went straight to the trampoline area, talking a little bit, but still scared. After all, it was dark, and we never had the best feeling about the gym at night. Tonight particularly, I had a worse feeling than any other time we had ever slept over. I watched the Seekers' figures moving from trampoline areas to the vaults, then slowly walking down the runway. My spine was interrupted by a figure in the corner of my vision. There was at least one human-like shape slowly making its way across the floor towards the vault runways where Gabby, Maya, and Abby were still sneaking along. I was a little mad that Emma was planning to scare the coaches without me, but insisted to remain hidden. I didn't come out. I hid my face for 1 second, and as I ducked back into my secret place, I heard a sound. The sound that still sends chills down my spine. It sounded like a herd of animals crawling down the runway at a sprint. The girls had made a plot to scare the coaches without me. I looked out as soon as I heard the noise. I had to cover myself up immediately, Then I looked back out. What I saw still haunts me to this day. It wasn't my teammates out there at all. It was nothing. There was no one there. The sound was reverberating throughout the gym, but all I saw when I looked out was the gym as it was, except the runway had a slightly blacker sheen. Maybe it was the figures. I hadn't looked long enough to tell. As soon as I was back under the mat, I heard a thud and a set of screams, followed by some sobs of terror. The stampede stopped. The only thing I had left to cling was my hope of not being found. So I remained in my spot, as the coaches and Abby lay at the end of the runway in pure disbelief and terror. They had turned on a flashlight, but no one had left their hiding spot. The gym was, as it has been. No mats moved or shadowy figures. Just a gym. After a minute of me hyperventilating under the mat, I decided it was time to see if what I swear I had seen was real. Gabby, Maya, and Abby were in the exact place they had been minutes before, still in a heap on the runway, sobbing. Everyone else had come over. Guys, come on. I thought we had a no scaring rule during hide and seek. You remember what happened last time? I said, still doubting what I had definitely seen with my eyes. Throughout all that had happened, I was still skeptical. Maybe my eyes had been playing tricks on me, and there really had been girls on the runway before. No one did that. I was under a mat by the bars the whole time. Brooke's response really made it seem real. I was beside the trampoline in the dark corner, and I swear to God, your mother, anything you want, that I didn't move, Elena added with the tremor. Sydney, who was too scared to talk, just shook her head. Sid and I were behind the parallel bars. We thought it was you and Emma. That's something you'd do, Charlie said. I'd forgotten about Emma being near me. No, it wasn't us. You watched me come out from under the beams. I saw Emma crawl across the floor. I thought it was her. Emma seemed a little angry when I said that. No, I was there, in those mats the entire time, I swear. I crossed my heart I never moved, or even spoke. That struck a chord for me. Wait. If you never said anything, then who whispered for me? When I asked this, I knew it wasn't anyone else. They were all well over 50 feet from my spot, other than Emma. It couldn't be explained. No one whispered you. What I don't get is why you kept shouting. You realize you're supposed to hide, right? Brooke said. I had no recollection of shouting anything. Just whispering what, in the smallest voice I could muster. Even though I swore all I had done was whisper once. All the others confirmed that I heard me repeatedly shouting 3 times. None of this night had made sense, and the night was still young. Let me stop you right there for 1 minute. Now, I know I still sound crazy. You'll see. Even me, the girl who had always thought everything was concrete and scientific, couldn't possibly find an explanation. Now, back to the regularly scheduled story. We all sat there for another hour, just feeling each other's presence. No one spoke, but we were comforted by the shared warmth. We thought that it had hit us before, but after the reflection, reality was starting to set in. We all went over in exact detail what we had been doing in the time of the events. I started. I was over in the far, far corner under the beam and mat, doing nothing. I had a peephole, but wasn't looking out. Naturally, we were suspicious of Charlie and Sid, since they were the closest, hiding just a few feet from the runway. Charlie claimed that they stayed hidden behind 2 exercise balls under the parallel bar set. No one was in a state to lie at this point, so we believed them. Brooke was trapped between one large, fluffy mat and another. I couldn't see anything. Then Gabby and Maya collapsed into view, then Abby on top. They were screaming. I couldn't have made it down the runway and back into this spot by the time it took them to turn on the light. Her point, being quite valid, was accepted easily. All that was left was Elena, and she too hadn't moved, and was far enough away for it to have been nearly impossible for her to be the culprit. That noise, the stampede of hands and feet crawling along dense, carpeted foam, I can't get it out of my head. No human, Not even all 6 of us girls hiding could have made that sound. It was a sound like no other, familiar, but so otherworldly, unique, chilling, terrifying. This event is a natural conclusion, right? Wrong. There's more. The night is young. There's so much more it can't fit into just one story. So I'll spare you the details of us playing volleyball on the floor for an hour. But be prepared, as I said, the night was young. After our volleyball tournament, Emma and Sydney collapsed with exhaustion on the trampoline. We took a bathroom break together, for the safety. Abby stayed behind. "What time is it?" Charlie asked. "My mum would kill me if it were after midnight." "It's 3:33, I said. 3:33, the devil's hour. Of course it had to be 3:33. I'll never forget that time. That was the time we heard pounding on the door, followed by a shrill screech. "Guys, you need to come out here. They're back. They're back," Abby screamed at us through the locked door. We were in a frenzy, and all of us sprinted out of the bathroom like a pack of dogs were chasing us. When we emerged in the gym, we were haunted by the sight before us. She was right, they were back. But they were impossibly different. But, Gabby, you cleaned them off. It was spotless. They were gone. Charlie stuttered in disbelief. She was saying what all of us were thinking. They had been gone, but returned, in the time a new, blood-curdling pan. The handprints. Those damn handprints, creeping across the mirrors, twisting, clawing, and scratching my insides, along with the reflective finish of the mirrors. It was like no feeling ever before. I was afraid for my life, but it was a fear of something there was no proof even existed. No one could believe what they were seeing. It was pure terror. There was something about the prints. They weren't just handprints. They were claws, scraping the mirrors. They were twisted upside down and backwards at no angle humanly possible. They struck fear in all of our hearts. It was Gabby who broke the silence. "I know this is crazy, but you have eyes. You saw, and I know for sure you felt the same things we're all feeling. This is real. We need to accept what we're all seeing. We weren't crazy. All this trying to crack it up to coincidence, seeing things or simply someone's pranks. And now I really knew it. These things really were unexplained by nature and humanity. Me, the skeptic, believing something is supernatural. This night had really changed me. But the night was still young. After cleaning the mirrors again, so we weren't living in the shadows of the prints, we huddled in fluffy blankets and talked. We played cards until 5, and then finally got some sleep. It took a while to actually sleep. We would hear a tiny creak or a pipe go off. It would nearly send us over the edge. Everything is scarier in the night. It takes away our senses of sanity and sight. The night would continue even in weeks, months, years after it occurred. But finally, we slept, still as the dead, until the morning sun seeped in through those same dusty garage door windows. Saturday morning practice the next day was uneventful, so I decided to hack Emma's phone. Charlie and I posed for way too many selfies. I scrolled through to find the one to send to myself, and dropped her phone onto the concrete below. It followed us into the light. The terrors of last night came back to me. Emma, seeing her phone on the concrete, rushed over and picked it up. She began to retch, also horrified at the sight on the screen. On her phone had been a photograph of her, asleep on the trampoline. I thought it was Sydney, until I noticed her sleeping body in the back corner of the image. We'd all been on the floor all night. None of us had even been over to the trampoline. But the worst thing about it, the absolute worst image that I can never get out of my head, was the screen. The image of Emma sleeping and Sydney close by, with the timestamp November 11, 2017, 3:33 a.m.